Hey guys, this is a doorway that opens once every 100 years. And if you're wondering what's behind it, then stick around because you're about to find out. The last time this door was opened was back in the year 2000, which means we have to wait another century to see what's behind it. But don't worry, because today we're going to open this door virtually so you can see inside. To be honest, there are several doors that look like this one, but they're all connected and they all lead to something spectacular. What you're looking at right now is called the Eclipse Mask of Teotihuacan. It was created more than 1,500 years ago, and even though its purpose has been lost throughout history, archaeologists believe it had something to do with the worship of the sun. You might be wondering why a mask though. Well, that's because ancient Mesoamerican cultures used masks like these for rituals, ceremonies, theater performances, and even burials. They were often used to impersonate gods or ancestors, and they also served as a way to scare away evil spirits. The earliest known example of a ritual mask dates back to 1500 BC, and since then, thousands of them have been found all over Mexico. But the Eclipse Mask of Teotihuacan isn't just any old mask. Its construction is incredibly complex, and it's decorated with astronomical alignments that only occurred during an eclipse, as you'll soon see. Here's why scientists think it was used to predict solar eclipses. The site where the mask was found is called the Avenue of the Dead, and it's located within the ancient city of Teotihuacan. Today, it's one of the most popular archaeological sites in Mexico, but back then, it was a bustling metropolis. At its peak, Teotihuacan was home to more than 150,000 people, and it was one of the largest cities in the world. The city's impressive pyramids still stand today, but the Avenue of the Dead is just as fascinating. It was a wide boulevard, lined with palaces, temples, and tombs, and it was used for processions and other public events. At its center was a raised causeway that led to the Pyramid of the Moon, and along either side were two rows of identical doors, each decorated with a large human face. These doors are made from basalt, which is a type of volcanic rock. Each one weighs about 3 tons, and they're almost 4 meters tall. But what makes them so special is what's carved into their surface. The doors were built with such precision that when the sun reaches certain points in its orbit, it lights up the face of the god, creating an eerie glow. In total, there are 72 doors along the Avenue of the Dead, and each one represents a different day of the year. The reason why there are so many is because the ancient builders didn't have a watch or a phone to tell the time, so they used the position of the sun to guess it. For them, the sun was a god, and they believed it had a human-like face with eyes that could be seen from Earth. However, as the centuries passed, the exact shape of the sun's face became distorted. The ancient builders would adjust the doors to keep up with the changing face of the sun, and that's how we ended up with 72 of them. Each door has a slightly different carving, so the sun's face would always line up perfectly. But the Eclipse Mask is by far the most elaborate. Carved into the center of the door is the face of a bearded man wearing a headdress. In his left hand, he holds a flower, and in his right hand, he holds a staff with a circular ornament at the top. And the reason why it's so famous is because of what happens twice a year. When the sun lines up perfectly with the mask's eye sockets, it creates an ominous shadow that resembles an eclipse. But that's not the only thing. There's also a small hole drilled into the nose of the mask. When the sun passes through the hole, it lights up the entire face, and that's considered a rare occurrence. But if you're lucky enough to witness it, then you'll know an eclipse is coming. That's why some historians believe the mask was used as a way to predict solar eclipses. But there's no evidence to support that theory, and we may never know for sure. What makes things even more interesting is that the mask was found in perfect condition. Even though it's more than 1,500 years old, archaeologists say the door was likely sealed shut long ago, and that's why it survived all these years. But there's something else you need to know. The mask was originally painted red, but as you can see, the paint has worn off over time. The color red is very important in Mexican culture, and it's often used to represent courage, strength, and blood. So it's possible the mask was once a symbol of power. Unfortunately, we don't know much about the mask's origins. Nobody knows who built it or how it got there. However, We do know that it was built between 250 and 500 AD. That was during the Classic period in Mesoamerican history, and the region was home to several powerful empires. One of them was the Teotihuacan Empire, and they controlled the entire Valley of Mexico. The empire reached its peak in the 5th century, and at its height, it was home to more than 100,000 people. But shortly after, it mysteriously collapsed, and its great city was abandoned. Some historians believe the collapse was caused by a series of droughts, while others blame warfare and famine, but nobody really knows for sure. The empire's downfall was a turning point in Mexican history. After it fell apart, several other civilizations rose to power, including the Aztec Empire. And when the Spanish arrived in the 16th century, they destroyed many of the ancient monuments. That's why we don't know much about the Teotihuacan Empire, but we do know a lot about the Aztecs. When the Spaniards came to the Valley of Mexico, they were amazed by what they saw before them. They were greeted by a large city with grand temples and towering pyramids. The Spanish conquistadors asked the natives where the city's king was, and they were told that he was on top of the biggest pyramid. So without hesitation, the conquistadors marched to the summit and killed him. That marked the end of the Aztec Empire, and the Spaniards wasted no time tearing down the city. They used the pyramids as a foundation for their own buildings, and they melted down the city's treasures to make new ones. But before they could destroy everything, an earthquake struck, causing many of the buildings to collapse. That's why we don't have many historical records about the city. Most of what we know comes from archaeological evidence and educated guesses. But as more time goes by, we're learning more about it. For example, scientists recently discovered a secret staircase that leads to the top of the Pyramid of the Moon. They also found evidence of a deadly battle that took place near the city walls. And every year, new discoveries are being made that help us understand this ancient city better. But despite our lack of knowledge, we still know enough to be fascinated by it. So, what do you think? Do you believe the Eclipse Mask was used to predict solar eclipses? Let me know in the comments below. And while you're there, make sure to subscribe. Thanks for watching. See you next time.